Hey guys, it's Frida, and welcome back to the Frida Says What podcast. On this podcast, we explore all that it takes to be and live as your own person, and how to use that knowledge to understand other people. On today's episode, we're going a little sciencey, a little biological. We're going to explore how our genes, our DNA, basically the concept of behavioral genetics that reframes the nature versus nurture debates, which is whether or not we are who we are because of our nature or because of how we grew up and what we experience, and how that science the how the science supports the idea that who you are is more than the sum total of what you've been through, and that we have a say, we have some control and influence over what happens to us and around us, and how understanding and knowing that gives us more power, gives us a say. I don't know why I feel like that was a really long sentence, but yeah, you get what I mean. It's funny because I stumbled upon this study when I was actually researching on how our environment, how we grew up, where we grew up, contributes to the people that we are now. And it was interesting to me when I stumbled upon a debate between two psychologists, Eric Turkheimer and Robert Plumming. Robert Plumbing believes that our DNA is the only stable and systematic causal factor in human development. Hold on. This is to say that we are at every given point in time, in almost every situation, the definers and constants that ultimately affects ourselves through our environment. And that while environmental influences like parenting, socioeconomic status, schooling and education, interaction with your peers, your friends, while all of that is impactful, Plumbing describes them as unsystematic and unstable. He's basically saying, okay, yeah, all this shit is random as hell. Like, it's very, very random. You have no control over who your parents are, you have no control over um the kind of money they have, the kind of schools you go to, like it's also random. It really could be anything. So at the end of the day, the only way to really measure the only way to define you, I guess, as a person is by your genes, your genetics, your DNA, which in the context of what we talk about is yourself. Chuckhammer, on the other hand, he's like, okay, hold up. Yes, I agree with you, right? Genes matter, but how they express themselves, how they materialize, how they show up depends on the environment that you're in, which is dynamic and deeply personal. He's like, yeah, your genes matter, but they don't act alone. They move through our experiences, our relationships, our stories. I can't say that I disagree with any of them because with plumbing, I kind of agree with the fact that everything outside of you is random and chance. I mean, for most of our foundational years, most of your preliminary years, you don't really have any control over your environment. For the better part of your formative years, you really have no control over what you experience. I mean, the schools you go to, like I said, the places you frequent, the interactions you have, they all depend mostly on your parents or on the status of your immediate environment, your caregivers, and I guess their status. You're the only constant in all of those situations. So yeah, I agree with that. And then on the other hand, you can't discount that going to those places, being in those spaces, being like taught by those people, like you can't say that that did not affect you in any way. You learned responses, coping mechanisms. You essentially learned to see life through what you experienced, and so therefore those experiences matter. But you see, what I understand to bring these two opinions together is that our traits, our genetics, we are predisposed to things. We could be naturally short tempered, naturally shy, naturally outgoing, naturally reactive. And in every situation that we encounter, once there's an interaction, and mind you, sometimes there doesn't even need to be one, we could be the initiators. Our traits determine how we respond, how we initiate, which then in turn influences how our environment responds to us, how our environment influences us, and then we respond again. And it's literally just like a continuous cycle of call and response. And how do we relate this to being individuals? Because this isn't just about science; it's about understanding ourselves. And if we, and I believe that we are also a factor, also contributors, we also have a say in our environment. If our genes shape how we respond to life, then being honest about our responses, being honest about the way we react, the way we are, our predispositions helps us reclaim our individuality. It helps us to manage, mitigate, control, and it also determines how we can grow from what we experience. I mean, this takes us back to the message of episode one, being honest with yourself about the kind of person that you are. And I guess like all of this research is basically doubling down on that. This is just basically science to back up what I said. And so when I say be honest with yourself, like what I now mean is like be honest about the way you respond, the traits that you have, your characteristics, things that behaviors that you're predisposed to displaying. Yeah. From seeing these two sides, I don't think that anyone's school of thought is necessarily better than the other. Before coming across this, I've always contemplated the thought or the idea of being more, and even like completely excluding the effects that my immediate environment had on me. I was just like, I want to see if I can be more. I want to see if you can be more than everything that has happened to us. But then understanding this like topic, like balancing out those two sides, it brought me down just a touch though, because I still want to believe, but just a touch. It's like I see how all of it is an interaction. And so if our DNA is the blueprint, like what does that mean for the house that we're building with it? We're going to look at how genes and our environment actually interact and how we shape the spaces that we live in. Genes don't dictate, the environment does not dictate. It is an interaction that keeps happening. Plumbing broke it down into three types of gene environment correlations, gene environment interactions. The first is passive, which is that you inherit traits from your parents and you grow up in environments that match those shared traits. Basically, like um okay, there's a science behind this as well. You are 50% similar to your parents. You inherit 50% of your parents' traits. What that means is that you are 50% similar to your parents, and it also means that you are 50% different from your parents. And because of that difference, to account for that difference, like you can have similar traits with your parents, but they can also express themselves in different ways. But when it comes to passive gene environment correlation, let's say your parents are musically inclined now, right? So they have a gene that that puts them at a predisposition to music, and you're their child, they give birth to you. You also inherit that trait. You also are like drawn to music as well. Somebody could assume when you grow up later in life to be a musician, to be like, oh, you're just a musician because your parents are musicians. But then like because your parents surrounded you with instruments, they probably took you to like sing for like voice, whatever they call it, you had voice coaches, you learned how to play instruments because your parents are musically inclined. Someone could be like, oh yeah, like you're a musician just because of all of that. But then like your parents created an environment that fostered your musical ability, that the two of you, that you guys share. And so that's passive gene environment correlation. Your parents have a trait, you share that trait with them, they put you in an environment that like flourishes that trait. The second is evocative, which is your trait elicits responses from others. Then other people react to you, and their reactions to you, to like the reactions that you evoke out of them creates another environment for you. To step away from the other example I used, I think like Plumbing used this example to generalize everything, but I think specifically for evocative, it to be easy for you to understand. Um, An aggressive child would be aggressive at home, maybe be very stubborn, right? You probably share that trait with your parents, but that doesn't even matter. Like if you're a stubborn child, your parents might feel like, oh, they need to flog you some more, or they need to be stricter with you. Um, and you're probably in like a very like you have like maybe a hot environment at home. And then in school, you could be stubborn, breaking things, looking for trouble, fighting with kids. Like, you're not going to have like a very nice time at school. Obviously, like your experience is going to be not very nice because like teachers probably going to have it out for you. People probably won't like you. People are you're like you're creating a hostile environment for yourself. And I guess in some cases you could think that, oh yeah, like, oh, everybody just hates me, oh, like everybody fuck everybody, yada yada yada, but like you also had a part to play. You evoked a response from your environment then that now created a new environment for you to exist in, if you get what I mean. And then the third is active, which is you seek out environments that fit who you are. To simply explain this, basically, you find your own people. You kind of like gravitate towards people similar to you, or you don't gravitate to people at all. Because I mean, like, if you're introverted, if that's your trait, you probably wouldn't like have as much friends as someone who was naturally outgoing. So that's you actively creating your environment. um, I will now give like a more complex example. I'll use myself. I'm just going to use two traits that I have. One that I think I learned, and another that like I inherited. So what I think I inherited, right? My dad, very sociable, very easy to talk to, very outgoing, confident in his speech. Um, my mom is also like very sociable when she wants to be. So yeah, I definitely think I inherited those traits from them. I'm very expressive, very sociable. I think I kind of thrive in social settings. So growing up, like, I mean, my parents like pushed everybody to be outgoing, speak up, be confident, put yourself out there. But I would definitely say that I was the one who took to it the most. Obviously, I had those traits, those things are innate in me, and like that encouraged my parents to put me in those spaces more, because I was definitely put in those spaces more than my siblings. So they created an environment for me to kind of like grow that trait, or to like see that trait more established in myself. And then for evocative now, I will now add the traits that I think I learned slash maybe I inherited some of it. I don't know. But like I said, I grew up in an environment that was, I've said this in another episode, that it wasn't really like emotionally expressive at home. I was expressive, yes, but not necessarily emotionally, as but I knew how to express myself, just explain my situation, stuff like that, but not very good at it emotionally, because I grew up in a household where like it seemed like everybody, it was just not a thing that we did, right? So I developed like a character. I'm easy to talk to, very sociable. You can like, it's very like, I'm just like really good at social situations, right? But I keep them really surface level. I definitely struggle to have like deep connections with people. Definitely struggle to have friends, because like there was always like a barrier. I didn't really allow myself to display wants or needs or stuff like that. Like anything too deep, anything too emotional, I definitely wasn't going there. And so like people knew that about me. It was like kind of like my thing, I guess. So whenever I would stray from that image, whenever I would be maybe more open, look like I'm become more vulnerable. Like it's obviously sound like they would obviously people some people would be confused, especially people I was into like romantically. Like I would say that like it was hard for them to like digest, because all the evidence shows that this is not how I move. So am I lying? Am I like, oh, they just didn't feel safe or comfortable with me? I know someone has told me that like they didn't feel like they could do normal things with me, meaning that they didn't feel like they could be comfortable with me. And obviously all those things hurts me. I was definitely hurt because of because of those assumptions, and that just made me double down on like not wanting to express myself emotionally. So traits that I possess, traits that like I showed, um brought a reaction from my environment. Definitely people also didn't feel like they could be intimate with me or like vulnerable with me because of like my demeanor. So whatever I put out there, I was definitely receiving, and then that was definitely affecting me. And then I grew, and then I grew to like actively chase like connection. I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to connect. Like that's something about me that I like, but I'm going to do it with people that I don't think I need to be emotionally like vulnerable with, which now made me to be surrounded. I created an environment where I was surrounded by emotionally unavailable people who were just like cool and easy to talk to. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I can like doing this research and doing this topic and doing this researching for this episode really made me like understand how like I put myself or how I got into that particular environment. It's like, okay, we're not just like bystanders, we're not just like passengers. This shit isn't just like happening to us. Like we kind of contribute to the environment that we're in. And okay, so what about the idea that our environment is random? Because that was Plumbing's big thing, that our environment is random and that the things that happen to us are just things that happen to us and we would be the same or we are who we are, either way. Let's look into that. I said in the beginning that I agree with Plumbing that a lot of what we experience when we're younger is random and chance, right? But um Turkheimer challenges that by saying that they are not random, they are not systematic, which means that they are hard to predict but still meaningful. I feel like he didn't just want to say directly still that the things that happen to us are chance because like I said, I agree, like you really have no control and it really be anything that be happening, right? But then like things that happen to you still like they have impacts on you. Like even if you put yourself in a position or whatever, like even if like and sometimes you don't really because this was the conflict I had with like plumbing, right? Think about people that had traumatic experiences that they really had no say in. Like, let's not even talk about sexual abuse because it always looks like I'm going there. Like, let's talk about like, okay, think about the girl like in Kichi, the Loyola girl that survived that social so like she was traumatized, and you cannot say that like any traits in her had anything had like that she definitely did not conspire or like contribute to her crashing down in that airplane. So traumatic experiences happen to you, right? And those things change you, those things affect you, those things teach you about yourself. And you cannot necessarily say in those moments, like your environment is the causal factor for what you are. But like I think where your individuality lies, like where the talk of DNA comes in, is now when you talk about your the response. What is the response? How do you like deal with what has happened to you? That's where people get different. Because another person who was not Nkechi that could have survived that Loyola air crash, right? Could have gone into a depression, could have committed suicide, would have not wanted to live and like continue life because of like what has happened to them. And like look at Nkechi, like she moved on with her life, like she's like doing so. I don't know her struggles because there will definitely be struggles, but she perseveres. Like that's about her. That's like in her DNA. Not saying that like there's anybody that has a better response. And of course, like if you know that you're the person, if you know that you're a person prone to depression and a person prone to sadness, and like you're not really like a sunny side up type of person, like you can still help yourself. You can knowing that can help you work on yourself, can help you like take like very 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 like intentional steps to helping yourself come out of that situation. In all of this, like knowing yourself is power. So therapy, things like therapy, reflection, and even storytelling, apparently like walking yourself back through your situations, like reconstructing your experiences, finding patterns, looking at the places where your responses and your reactions to things, looking at where those things took you, and like seeing or asking yourself, oh, okay, like what are the parts that I had to play? What are the parts that I did not have to play? Taking accountability and like letting go of the ones that like you had no say in. They definitely help you to um know your parts, know your place. Like they help you like figure out yourself for sure. Like I said, doubling down on episode one. Do I think that these experiences are fucking random? Yes, I do. Like I said, it really be fucking anything that happens to you. But yeah, those things you cannot discount their meaning. This is where I bring Turkheimer and Plumbing together. And when you reflect, you're not just remembering, you're rewriting, you're saying, this is what happened to me, but this is what it means to me. This is what I take away. And that's what being your own person means. That's where, like, that's the difference between you and like someone who just does. And so if these experiences have meaning and our responses shape our story, what do we do with that knowledge? How do we use it to become more ourselves? And this is where it gets personal, because the science tells us what's likely. And yeah, I probably forgot to mention polygenic scores, but this one is like really purely science, is what psychologists use to kind of like predict or estimate the likelihood of the combination of someone's DNA making them lean towards a certain trait or a certain disease. So technically, like, you can, with science and with these scores, you can predict your predisposition to something. So you can say that somebody can predict your next move or predict how you would react to certain situations. But like, even if science can do all of that, it can only tell you what is likely, right? The science does not, like, cannot account for who you are, and we are the ones that decide what is meaningful. So what can we do? On the Frida Says what section, this is what I want to be your takeaway. This is not necessarily what I want you to do, but like, this is what I want you to understand from everything that I've been saying. You are not just your genes. You are not just your environment. They are part of you, yes. They are part of your makeup, but like, they do not define you. What you are is an interpreter. You're the one that gives all of these things meaning. Your responses matter, your awareness matters, your choice matters. What you decide to do with what you know and what has happened to you matters. And even though the science, the scores can predict our tendencies, like, they do not define our narrative, they do not define your narrative, and they definitely do not define your expression. So ask yourself, what parts of your environment did you create? What parts of your story have you recreated? Have you reclaimed? That's where your individuality lies, that's where it grows, that's where it lives. And honestly, like, I think with everything that I have said, with everything that I have read, with everything that I know now, I think the only question I'm really left with is, can we ever fully separate who we are from what we've lived through? Because like I said earlier, I've always had the thoughts of like, oh, can we be more than our environment? Can we like throw that shit away? Like, can I just be what I choose to be, regardless of everything that's happened to me? Like, is it still possible, knowing now that, like, at the end of the day, our environments interact? Like, can we control? Can we, like, it's almost like control, isn't it? Can we control ourselves? Can we put ourselves in positions where, like, we do not allow ourselves to be, even like, even with a small amount, be defined by the things that have happened to us? I don't know. I don't know. I want to try, but like, they are, you cannot discount, like I've said, like the science proves, you cannot decide, you cannot like, you cannot discount their importance. So that's the question that I have. I wonder if I've left you with any questions. But yeah, that's all I have for this episode. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I definitely think that, like, it will make. I would definitely ask some questions. I would throw some questions out there. I'll probably give some guests some more questions. The more I think about it, because it's an ongoing discourse. It's definitely an ongoing debate right now in the psychological community, or the psychology community. Um. So yeah, I didn't want to go too deep, because I was like, I'll probably just be too biased, because I've already stated my preference, right? Give them time to figure all of that shit out and come and like make my own conclusions after. You should also look into this more and make your conclusions. There's a book about this. Robert Plumming wrote a book about this. It's what sparked the article that this person wrote. Drop the link to that too. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for walking with me through this episode. Um, like, subscribe, comments, give us ratings on Spotify, please. Um, take us out, like recommend us to people. If this episode made you think, like you can share it with someone who you want to think about these things as well. Again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.